Alright, I am back with a video about the Game Awards. Didn't really think I'd be making a Game Awards video, but also didn't think I would be this annoyed with the Game Awards. Not only because it took 3.5 hours of my night to watch it all and cover it, but because of the way it was handled. And it has gotten to a point where I wrote about this earlier. The show has almost become a parody of itself, where there's always been this complaint that the Game Awards is like a big show about advertising and like it's really just trying to be E3 and it's mostly about like showing trailers and stuff. And that's true. But I have watched the show over the years, and like Keely's been doing this for, I don't know, well over a decade now, because I went to the Spike TV VGX Awards back, God, I don't even know when, it's at least 10 years ago. With the red carpet where the celebrities showed up and like, oh, here's Chris Hemsworth, pre-Thor, I think, and Denise Richards and the robot from Battlestar Galactica, and like these just random celebrities who would go there and show up and read their lines and just exist as celebrities there. And it was just sort of this big joke, like this MTV-ish sort of nonsense thing. And then over the years, like I saw Keely like really, really, really trying to invest in it. And it took a very long time, and it was like when the switch over to like the true Game Awards happened. But eventually we got to a point where it was kind of good, and he really seemed like he was striking a balance, to some degree at least, between the E3 trailers, world premiere stuff, and then like actual tributes to games and like some good music stuff and some good features and like some cool moments of winners and stuff. And like there were a couple good years in there, and yet this year was just so outrageously bad in so many ways that it's like almost actively offensive in terms of how things were handled. And it has to change. Like, I know he's hearing this feedback because he's super online and is like literally soliciting feedback about how people are feeling about the Game Awards at all times. And there's all these tweets about this and that thing being bad that have tens and tens of thousands of likes right now. There are so many issues with last night, and it's the main focus is that not enough attention is being paid to the awards and the people that made the games that win the awards, as opposed to not just marketing for other games, but the way other parts of the show are employed. And in terms of the awards themselves, we've gotten to the point where they do this, I don't know how many awards there are. There's at least 24 awards, I think. They have the pre-show, which they just spit out a number of esports awards where no one is there to claim them, and I don't know why there are really esports awards here to begin with, other than it's like a appendage of the industry. But if they're just going to shout out 5 names in the pre-show, I don't know why they do that. But then what happens is Keely picks like a select number of awards that will actually get announced on stage, which is a pretty low amount. And then the rest of the awards, all these subcategories, these subgenres, whatever, he will just look at the camera and yell them out for like 45 seconds. And you go through 4 or 5 awards within the span of, a couple of breaths. Like I'm trying to cover this and see who the winners. I couldn't even write them down fast enough. He would just go through them at such a rapid pace. And he did this like 4 times. There were like 4 different groupings of awards that were just, him word vomiting them out. And it's crazy to me that like, say you're Capcom and you spend all these years developing Street Fighter 6 and it's awesome and it gets all these high scores, and you're nominated for best fighting game and you win it, and you get exactly 8 seconds of Geoff Keighley reading through your category and saying your name, and that is it. That is your acknowledgement, and they will mail you the trophy maybe. That sucks. And if they're not going to care about these categories, then why have them? Like it feels like marketing where like, oh, if I'm nominated, I want to support the Game Awards and like promote it and stuff. But like, if they don't care enough about these categories, even some of these big categories like, best RPG and things like that, like if they don't care enough about those to give them any amount of time, like half the time of a commercial break essentially, then they shouldn't have them at all. But equally, there's a problem with the awards they do have on stage. And as everyone noted, the issue is that the people who win the awards are barely given any time to speak at all. I think it's you have 30 seconds from the time you like touch the statue, I think, to make your speech, and then you will get the flashing wrap it up message for the next 15 seconds. So at most you have 45 seconds. And there are only, I don't even know how many were on stage, 8 awards on stage total. So like I think someone did the math, and of the 3.5 hour show, there were 12 total minutes of acceptance speeches. And an additional 5 minutes if you count Geoff Keighley yelling through all the other winners that did not have speeches. And this created some really bad moments, like the actor who won for Astarion making like a really heartfelt speech that was cut off after like 40 seconds, and he was played off because reasons. And then right after that, Sam Lake got up there and he starts playing off Sam Lake, who's like one of the most, popular people there and like had all this great success with Alan Wake this year, and they play him off. And like granted he came back later, but like it's absurd. And then another issue is it's the other side of the coin here, where what is allowed space is just not anywhere comparable to what isn't in terms of the speeches. And yes, a lot of this is trailers, and I think there's too many trailers and too many world premieres and not enough really relevant ones, and it seems like it's just a lot of small, mid-sized games for the most part trying to, weasel their way in there and pay Geoff money to get featured or whatever. But it's like how the rest of the show is handled, where we had this big celebrity kind of plague this year where I really thought we were like kind of done doing this, and celebrities would only show up when it's like really, really, really relevant. Not really the case this time. Like, I guess, Matthew McConaughey and Simu Liu had games they were starring in. And Anthony Mackie has Twisted Metal. And poor Timothy Chalamet presenting Game of the Year has nothing related to gaming coming out other than like he used to be a gaming YouTuber before he was famous. But these celebrities, they get free reign of, Matthew McConaughey can go and make his jokes and talk about his catchphrases. Simu Liu spends 5 minutes talking about how he hurt his foot playing basketball, which is half the time of all the acceptance speeches that were given. Like, there are no limits on like the goof around, joke around celebrity presenters, and it's eating into time that could easily be distributed among the people who are actually giving acceptance speeches or pulling more people up on stage to give acceptance speeches. And yet it doesn't matter. And then past the celebrities, which I think Geoff dives too deep into, Geoff has this like weird yearly obsessions that he will not let go of, which includes a Muppet segment, which again, that's an award or two they probably could have put on stage as opposed to hanging out with Gonzo. And like, I get it. He loves the Muppets. Like, I like the Muppets too, but like, Jesus Christ, come on. And then the annual Hideo Kojima showcase, where, yes, they're best friends. Geoff loves Hideo Kojima. We all love Hideo Kojima. Not as much as Geoff loves Hideo Kojima, but he shows up. He shows some sort of cryptic footage from one of his games, or announces he's working on a game. I think that was one year where he literally just said, "I'm working on a game." And like this time, we had a trailer of a bunch of actors saying things at the screen with his hybrid thing, and then he brings out Jordan Peele because they're working on OD together. And like, if this was like, an E3 showcase and this was like the Microsoft event or something, like a 15-minute interview with Hideo Kojima and Jordan Peele might make more sense. But in this like blisteringly paced award show, it's so out of place, and like he gives so much deference to Kojima, and like Kojima especially, but like really any of these companies where a developer will get a 3-minute trailer spot and like a 4-minute interview, at least with Geoff for some of these, to debut a game that's coming later. And it all of this just absolutely dwarfs the awards themselves. And I just, even the way it's structured is poor, because the way Geoff has this set up is it doesn't really work unless you like really finagle things around, which like eliminates all suspense. We had these categories where if you're a Game of the Year nominee in a category, like you're gonna win that category unless there's another Game of the Year nominee in there. And the way this all had to be finagled was all of these subcategory awards were not on stage, and then they're like, oh, actually, wait, Action Adventure, I think it was Action Adventure, is going to be on stage, and that's going to be Zelda. So we make sure we get some Zelda people speaking on there, even if we give them 40 seconds. And then we're going to gloss over Best RPG, which Baldur's Gate wins. And then, obviously, Baldur's Gate is going to win Game of the Year if they didn't let them on stage for Best RPG. So that means Alan Wake loses and Baldur's Gate wins, which is exactly what happened. And it's just, even as an awards presentation, it's like, it's so screwed up and obvious how this plays out. And none of this makes any sense. Like, the show is already too long, but it's like, it's too long to a point where, like, what if you added 15 minutes to the show and the 10 people or 8 people that are on stage got an extra 80, 90 seconds to make a speech as opposed to 40 seconds? Like, would that really kill it? Like, what is the time crunch here? This is a Twitch thing in a live theater. You don't have to, air The Simpsons after this. Like, why are you playing off the Baldur's Gate guys with a wrap it up sign? Like, who fucking cares? Like, what? The show should be shorter overall. They need to cut a lot of the extraneous fat, especially, not even like the Muppet stuff, but like, there are so many trailers and so many ads. It's just this deluge. And like, for any given person, it's like, what, 5-10% of them are maybe interesting, and it's so much filler. It's all these just people just vying desperately for attention, which, like, I don't blame them. It is a show that has a lot of eyes on it, but like, it's just this like bidding war behind the scenes of like who pays for a feature, who pays for an ad spot, like it's exhausting. Like, I know a show like this is expensive to produce, but like this show gets insane viewership every year, and like that should be able to be monetized in a way where like it doesn't need to be 85% advertisements, if not more. And there are pieces of good stuff in there. The music stuff they do, I really like. I think everyone who didn't play Alan Wake was probably very confused by the Alan Wake part, and there are, it can occasionally find the rare, very good moment. The starring speech was really good. The guy whose name I forget from Raised by Wolves, an amazing show that HBO murdered, presenting his game, and like he was a really, like, he's a celebrity in the sense that he was on TV, but he's not like Matthew McConaughey. Like his presence and his appearance there, and the way he talked and the way he felt like gratitude for being there and like felt so emotional. That was a really great moment. That was probably the best moment of the whole show, awards aside. Like, but there's so few of those found among all of the rushing and the celebrities and the Kojimas and the shouting award. Like, it's chaotic to the point of being disrespectful, I think is where it's reached now. And it was moving away from that for a time. Like, it's always been pretty long, but it was more measured. It did seem more focused on the games. But now, we're still in this focused on the games thing, but that also means like Keighley is not brave enough to say anything about the 7, 8, 9,000 people in the games industry that got laid off this year. I get that it's an uncomfortable topic, and yet pretty important, and you can acknowledge it in some way, and I don't think you're going to lose a bunch of developer participation by doing that. And I think some other people who gave acceptance speeches may have mentioned that if they had more than 30 seconds at a time to talk, but who does? There was a letter signed by the Future class where, like, hundreds of members of the Future class, where they wanted some sort of acknowledgement about the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. It is not unheard of for award shows to address, worldwide topics like this, if it's the Oscars or whatever. And that obviously didn't happen at all, and I did not expect it to because, well, it's the Game Awards, and they don't want to do stuff like that. I think this all comes down to, it's become too much of the Geoff show. And I get that he runs it. I get that this is all his baby, but it just seems so centered around him. The whole thing's orbiting around him. It's not, I don't think it's just that he wants to be on TV and he wants to be famous and whatever. It's just, I don't think he can give up any real control of it. And which is why we're stuck with these like recurring Muppets things and recurring Kojima things, because it's like, it's Geoff, and this is what Geoff wants to do, and Geoff wants to show a lot of trailers and get a lot of people watching for the trailers and hang out with his friend Kojima and let everyone know how good a friends he is with Kojima. And, have this big show. But I think it's starting to backfire on him where he's so front and center on this. Like, who are we talking? We're not talking about anyone but Geoff. Like, we're not talking about, whoever designs the Oscars. I don't even know. It's not the host of the Oscars who designs the Oscars. But when you're criticizing the Game Awards, it's like you are directly criticizing Geoff because he essentially is the Game Awards. So if you're directing feedback and you have all these faults with it, it is Geoff's fault. Like it's all his thing, and it all fundamentally comes back to him. And I do think that we need some sort of like award show to some extent that is sort of like an industry staple. I think the Game Awards by default has become it. Publishers really want to win Game Awards. Fans, they can say what they want, but fans are excited when their favorite games win Game Awards, or they're sad when they're not nominated, or whatever. And even accepting the fact that, yes, it's also kind of winter E3 with world premiere trailers and stuff, which is, you're never going to see the Oscars like debuting the, new Marvel trailer, I don't think. There's like a balance that can be struck there, and I think it has been hit a couple of times in the past, but not this year. It got way worse this year, and it has to improve for next year. Like, he has to be hearing this feedback, but it's just a matter of whether or not he cares, if he will part with his beloved Muppets and Kojima. And I think he really got spooked by Christopher Judge making his 8-minute acceptance speech, which was like funny. Like, it was funny he went that long, and like it was like a little exhausting, but like I'd rather watch Christopher Judge speak for 8 minutes than, watch 8 minutes of ads for games I'm never going to play, or, hear Simu Liu talk about his foot. Like, that, I don't care. Like, let them all speak for 5 minutes. Who cares? Like, it's at least they're getting the time and respect that they deserve for making these games, for winning these awards. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens next year. In the past, he has absorbed feedback and there's been some changes, but this time was really bad and really lame, and I think he can do better. So we'll see. Let me know what you thought of the show if you watched it. If you didn't, probably for the best. The finals launched. That's, a big story. Baldur's Gate is out on Xbox. I don't know. There's a few things, but in terms of even announcements, it wasn't really like the biggest show in the world either. So whatever. Okay. Thanks for watching. I will talk to you soon. Take care.